Hello everyone. Today we are going to be learning about the different economies in the world. Before we start, there are some basic economic questions that you have to understand. First one is, what goods and services should be produced? Goods are items such as an iPods, apples, computers, anything that is made. Services is a service that's performed. So if you install carpet, that is a service. If you flip burgers, that is a service. For me, I'm a teacher. Teaching is my service. We're going to talk about how should they be produced and for whom are they produced. And how a society answers these questions determines the type of economy it has. So we'll be comparing traditional, free market, command, and mixed economies. Traditional economy, which is primitive cultures outside of a global marketplace, their economic decisions are based on custom and historical precedent. You won't see these two very often, but if you were to go outside of a city and maybe a country such as Guatemala or maybe somewhere in Africa, they would have a traditional economy. And in a traditional economy, people often perform the same type of work as their parents and grandparents, regardless of ability or potential. These communities usually won't have very much schooling. If your grandfather was a fisherman, you'll probably be a fisherman. And then it just keeps going on and on. You just have a basic trade and that's all you do. Once again, these aren't your typical economies you see very often. The next is a free market economy. It's often referred to as a capitalist economy. A free market economy is characterized by private ownership of property, resources, profit motive, competition, consumer sovereignty, and individual choice. So this is where you're free to make whatever you want. People can buy whatever they want. There's no restrictions. The government doesn't step in. Some countries have this. Adam Smith was one of the founders of free market capitalism. And you just think the word free. Free means you can do whatever you want. And in a free market, it's open to anything. You can make whatever you want, and people buy whatever they want. On the opposite end of the spectrum is a command economy. And this is often referred to as a communist economy or communism. A command economy is characterized by central ownership of property, resources, centrally planned economy, and lack of consumer choice. So this one, the government would control everything. They tell people what to make, when they need to make it. Consumers don't have much choice of what they want. I mean, if you want to buy a car, there's one type of car. There's not options with this. It's like it says, central ownership, just one person really controls it, or the government controls it. A man named Karl Marx provided the ideological foundation for communists or centrally planned economies. Back when the Soviet Union was communist, Karl Marx had a lot of influence on that. Command economies, there are not a whole lot in the world. North Korea would be one, Cuba, and here's a few other ones that would be a command economy. So again, it's not that prevalent, but it still exists. The most common one is a mixed economy. It's where individuals and businesses make decisions for the private sector. And in a mixed economy, the government makes decisions for the public sector as well. So the United States is actually a mixed economy. In a mixed economy, the government's role is greater than in a free market economy and less than in a command economy. So remember, in a command economy, the government does everything. In a free market economy, the government actually does almost nothing. Most economies today are mixed economies. So we're going to look at kind of some examples. But usually political and economic freedom go hand in hand. The degree of economic freedom in a nation tends to be directly related to the degree of political freedom its citizens enjoy. So, for example, authoritarian nations, which would be command economies, they have limited economic freedom. They also have limited political freedom. So you're not allowed to say what you want in an authoritarian nation. You really can't vote. Same thing with the economy. You don't have a lot of choices. In democratic nations, which are free and mixed economies, there's a high degree of economic freedom and a high degree of political freedom. Think in the United States, you have freedom of speech, you have all sorts of freedoms, and same thing with the economy. You have different options of video games, you can buy any type of fruit you want. I mean, you can really spend your money on whatever you want. So we'll go into some of the freedoms. So economic freedoms individuals can include the ability to earn money. In a free market, it means your salary can be whatever people are willing to pay. I mean, I'm a teacher, there's different salaries. If Fairfax was to offer less, I mean, I could, if I want, I can just move to another county and try to get paid more. In a command economy, your salary would be set no matter where you work. You would have no options. The government would say, you're a teacher, you make $30,000 a year, there's nothing you can do about it. And in a mixed economy would allow freedom of salary, but they may place a minimum wage. So the United States would be an example. Your salary can be anything, but there is a minimum wage. You can't make under a certain amount. The next freedom is the right to purchase property. In a free economy, you can purchase any property you want, and sellers can charge any price they want. If you want to buy a house, there's no restrictions. Whether you can afford it, that's another story, but sellers can sell whatever they want. A seller can sell their house for $10,000, they can sell it for $1 million. And in a command economy, the government controls what can be bought and for how much. So they might have a piece of property and say, this is worth $50,000, and there's nothing you can do about it. They control the price, they control the market, they control property. Another freedom is the right to spend income on goods and services. A free economy has no limits on what goods you can buy. You can go ahead and buy whatever you want. A command economy limits what you can buy. North Korea would be an example of a command economy. And if you go into a store there, there's limited items. It's not like you have Cherry Coke, Pepsi, Diet Coke, and Sprite, lemonade. You know, there might just be a couple drinks. They limit on what you can buy. And a mixed economy may allow you freedom, but may set up restrictions on purchases. So, for instance, in the United States, you can buy cigarettes, but you have to be 18. You can get a gun, but you have to do a background check. So the United States, a mixed economy like most countries in the world, there are freedoms, but they can restrict certain things at times. Another freedom is the right to choose occupations or change jobs. In a free economy, you can choose any job you want. You know, if you want to be a doctor, go for it. If you want to flip burgers at McDonald's, go for it. Nothing's stopping you. In a command economy, you are limited on what jobs you may get. You know, in a command economy, you may want to be a doctor, but they might say, we only need one doctor, so you can't do it. They can also tell you you're going to work on a farm, and that's what you're going to do. A mixed economy, they're like the United States. Of course, you can be a doctor, but you do need to pass tests. You have to go to school. So there's some restrictions on it. Another option is the right to make choices about where and how much to save. In a free economy, you can save as much money as you like and how you want to save. You can put your money in a bank, you can buy stocks, you can buy bonds, whatever you want to do. A command economy may not allow you to save and may only give you one option as to where to save your money. So they might say, we have a bank. If you have extra money, you can put it in the bank. They may not allow you to buy stocks. Maybe you can't buy bonds. And a mixed economy like the United States gives you freedom on where you can invest or save, but you may be taxed differently based on where you invest. So, I mean, I can put my money into a retirement account, and whatever money I make, I'm not going to have to pay very much tax on it. But if I put my money in a stock market and sell my stocks and make money off of it, I'd have to pay more taxes on that. So in mixed economy, you're free to choose wherever you want to invest or save, but there can be different taxes on it. The next freedom is the right to start new businesses and decide what to produce. In a free economy, you can start any business and produce any item you like. If you want to start selling smoothies, go for it. Open a store, sell smoothies. In a command economy, you're limited by the government and what you can produce. So it's not so simple in a command economy to say, oh, I feel like opening up a hamburger restaurant, so I'm just going to open it up. No, you need the government's permission. The government might say, we already have 2 of these. You need to open up a hot dog store. They can tell you what to do. In a mixed economy, you may be free to produce what you like, but you can be limited in your production. So the United States is an example of this. You might want to start a farm, and they might say that's fine. You can have a farm, but you could only make so many pounds of corn, or you could only produce so much of something. All right, last thing we're talking about is the government has created certain consumer protection laws and agencies to protect these freedoms and include the following. So this is in the United States. We have the Consumer Product Safety Commission. So I mean, you can make whatever you want, but this organization, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, they make sure everything's safe. And if they find out that you made a baby seat that is defective and breaks and people can die from it, they can do a recall, stop it from being produced. There's also the Fair Labor Standards Act. So once again, you can work any job you want, but companies have to have certain standards. They can't pay you less than, $8 an hour. They have to give you bathroom breaks. They have to give you lunch breaks. There's also the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So if you're doing construction and your company's not providing helmets, which they're supposed to do, they can get in trouble. The other one's the Food and Drug Administration. They make sure that the food you eat is safe, the drugs that you take are safe. They want to make sure people aren't getting sick from this. So we'll talk more about these different economies. These are just some of the basics. Really what you need to know is that there's a free market economy, a command market economy, and then there's a mixed economy. Let me know if you have any questions.